Hello everyone and welcome to Football Newsroom for the match review of the Manchester Derby. To start with, I am like everyone a bit shocked. It's not that we didn't intercept such a result. Everyone thought this was a possibility, but that actually happening is altogether a very different story. I don't know how Man United in these games perform at another level. A team that loses out to Bournemouth, to Crystal Palace and drops points every now and then and escapes through a draw, steps up every time against the big teams. They beat Chelsea twice this season. They are the only team to get a point against Liverpool so far, and they now move on to beat Spurs and Man City in a week. They can feel like the big boys again for a while, and I hope they gather some momentum and keep this going. Things, however, are not going good for Man City. Right now, as things stand, they are 14 points behind league leaders Liverpool, and maybe if Leicester win later tonight, they will be 6 points behind them as well. In the last two seasons in the Premier League, City managed 100 points in 2018 and 98 last season. But as of this season, 98 is the maximum they can reach. And just 16 rounds have passed, guys. Yes, Man City have dropped 16 points this season, same as what they did in the entire last season. I am not saying recovery from this point is impossible, but let's face it guys, it's not easy. If Liverpool continue with their excellent form, things are not looking good for Man City. Now, moving on to the lineups, Man City lined up in their usual 4-3-3 shape with Angelino starting at left back, the only change from our predicted lineup. For Man United, Luke Shaw started at left back, Jesse Lingard started as the attacking midfielder, while Martial returned to the first team after recovering from the injury. This was a major boost for Man United. With Martial returning, things looked different up front. Man United had more pace, more experience, and a lot of quality up front. They were a lot more threatening in the counter-attacks, and honestly guys, it was an excellent goal from him. Now, if you focus on the structure of Man City, you know they usually play with a 2-3-5 system while attacking. But in this game, Angelino didn't always work as an inverted fullback. Time and again, we found Sterling cutting in inside and Angelino overlapping down the left to pull in the crosses. This left spaces in the wide areas, and as the game went on, we found Daniel James time and again using his space to hurt Man City. You could also find a similar vulnerability down the right hand side, even though Walker was playing as an inverted fullback and staying deep. Rashford and Lingard often found faces behind him in the wider areas. But credit to Walker, who did an excellent job to stop them both. Walker was clearly one of the best performers in the backline for Man City. Now, things were pretty even in the first quarter of the game. It was full of ups and downs, and Man United looked to have a little more cutting edge in front of the goal. Man United had a shot accuracy of 63.6% compared to City's 22.7%. I believe this is what won them the game. They were clinical in the final third and took their chances, something Man City clearly didn't do. Another thing that shocked me was how easily Man U played out from the back. I have not seen many teams tear City's press apart so easily. They were constantly finding space, whether it was in midfield in the number 6 area or with fullbacks and wingers in the wider areas. They were constantly finding space and playing out easily. We don't see that very often now, do we? While defending, Man United often tracked back in a 4-5-1 formation, with Lingard a little higher than Scott and Fred to press Rodri if required. This however meant that Jesus could find space between the two pivots. He often dropped deeper and tried to exploit this space, but Harry Maguire seemed to stop him every time. The United defense pushed up high when required, and this offered very little space to work with in between the lines. Harry Maguire had an excellent game and really enjoyed to lead his line from the back. Now, moving on to another defender, we just have to talk about Wan-Bissaka. Down the right hand side, it was the most interesting 1v1 battles of the game between Sterling and Wan-Bissaka. We all know about Sterling's quality and how he can hurt any team with his pace and fancy touches. We don't really need an introduction for him. And now, I believe someone like Wan-Bissaka shouldn't need an introduction either. The way he played was just intriguing to watch. I found Sterling dribbling past him only once or twice, but every other time, it was Wan-Bissaka who emerged as a winner. For me, in terms of his defensive duties, Aaron Wan-Bissaka is clearly one of the best right backs of the Premier League right now. Up front, Man United didn't really look to press the centre backs. Sometimes we could find Martial pushing up, but otherwise they tracked back and often overcrowded the midfield. This allowed City centre backs to move the ball freely with a little more time. As we had discussed in the preview, they are excellent ball players and were constantly finding Sterling and Angelino down the left and Bernardo Silva down the right. But the fullbacks and wide players of Man United moved back and narrowed down the space perfectly. Moreover, both the central midfielders Scott McTominay and Fred did an excellent job by stopping City's midfield and closing down the half spaces. This often pushed De Bruyne wider. He moved all around the pitch, from left to right and even the wider areas, looking for spaces. For me, it was only De Bruyne and maybe Kyle Walker in the back who were the standout performers for Man City. Otherwise, the team didn't really look like the Manchester City we have seen in the past 2 years. We will later make a video about City's growing problems this season, what's actually going wrong and how things can improve. As of right now, I would just like to add that City did not really make a very good choice during the summer by not signing a centre back to replace Kompany. Laporte's injury is surely hurting them a lot in the back, and I think now maybe they can buy someone in January. Yes, I believe Fernandinho is doing an excellent job, but I still think that they need some sort of a cover. I would love to see Fernandinho return in central midfield. Even though Rodri is not doing a very bad job, sometimes his lack of pace and decision making hurt City during the counter-attacks. I think he needs a little more time to adapt. He clearly has the potential to succeed here, and I believe Guardiola with time will bring out the best from him. I would also like to mention something about City's midfield in general. City always seemed to have the strongest midfield in the past 2 years, with David Silva and De Bruyne. But as of right now, Guardiola needs to find an answer for the aging David Silva. He is nowhere near his best, and maybe it's time to replace him. Someone like Gundogan or Phil Foden has to rise up to the occasion. In this game, even though City sometimes found space in midfield, they couldn't really exploit that space. Moreover, they often lost possession high up the pitch in clinical areas, which initiated counter-attacks for Man United. Lingard often found space between the lines, and with the pace of their front three, they hurt Man City. If they were a little more clinical in front of goal, maybe we could have seen more goals from United. Guardiola needs to find an answer to these problems. He must find an answer before it's too late. Right now, Man City have to be more focused and win every game. They need to keep Liverpool under pressure, and a few drop-off points might help them. It's not impossible, guys. With Man City and Guardiola, it's never impossible. Now, I would like to end the video congratulating Man United. Honestly guys, what a performance it was. As I had said in the preview, maybe starting with the Tottenham game, things are changing. And changing for better days again. I really hope they keep up this sort of performance. The last 2 games showed us Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's brilliance. Everyone started thinking that maybe with this level of performance, he will be sacked too. But in the last 2 games, he proved us yet again that he is the right man for the job. Maybe with a little more time, he can bring back the good old days of Man United. That's about it guys. Thank you as always for joining me. Please leave your thoughts in the comments down below and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.